I knew that a miracle had taken place in my life, that had gone, I'd gone from years of hanging under this cloud and feeling like there was no hope to all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden because it had been years in the journey, but in that moment, that was all gone. It had felt like it had never even been there, and I was now experiencing joy.
Now sing it, hey-ho, hey-ho. The future is bright.
Hey there, and welcome to this, our first ever episode of the Future is Bright podcast.
Yay!
Yay!
We're excited.
Yeah, I hope you're excited.
Yeah.
If you're not, we are. But we're excited to do this. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm Caleb.
I'm Kyra.
This is my beautiful wife, Kyra. And on this podcast, we have set this up as a space where we can have conversations with real people who have real stories of finding a bright future from the darkest, most hopeless times. Future is Bright is a song of ours. It's been a message of ours for years. But we wanted to do this because Future is Bright is so much more than a song. It's so much more than just positive vibes or thinking good thoughts. It's actually something real. It's rooted in that anchor of hope that God has a promise for a future filled with hope. And that's changed our lives. It's always changing our lives. And it has it has changed our lives. It's changed the lives of those around us. So we want to celebrate those stories and inspire you that wherever you are, however dark it seems, you can walk into a bright future. God's promises for a future filled with hope.
That's right.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to get stuck into our first story today. But right at the start, I'd love to encourage you, wherever you're consuming this, we'd love you to subscribe to it. Because that way, as we have more stories and more episodes going forwards, which we're going to be doing in the next few weeks, it can come directly to you. And we'd love to be able to connect you with those stories, with that content. We would love you to be able to be inspired by the hope of there's some amazing people we're going to be interviewing and some amazing stories we're going to be talking about. So we would love you to be inspired by that hope. So wherever you're listening, if you hit subscribe, then it can come straight to you, and we would love you to get that direct to you.
Yeah, that's great, because there's a lot of stuff you can listen to that's not hope-filled and it's not not very fun to listen to, but this is a place where you will hear good stuff.
You will get hope here.
Yeah.
Subscribe to this. Subscribe to hope. Today's episode, we're going to talk to someone very special. When I was thinking about this, I don't know all the episodes we'll ever do. I don't know how many episodes we'll do in the future, but I think that today we might be interviewing the most special guest that we ever have. So we're peaking early, but that's okay. And because today we are interviewing my wife, Kyra, who to me is the most special person in the world.
That's very kind.
And to everyone who's watching, you're the most special person in the world.
I'm not sure about that, but that's
absolutely.
A nice sentiment.
Yeah, wherever you're listening, just send us a comment. Say, Kyra is the most special person in my life. But I'm not interviewing Kyra today because I couldn't get anyone else. Because everyone else said no. And so we had to work our way down the list and eventually get there. No, Kai has a truly inspiring story. She is my wife, obviously. She is the mother of my son, and we enjoy an amazing life together. But her life didn't always look like this, and she went through some serious challenges. That the person she is today is very different to the person she was a number of years ago. She has an amazing story, and her battle with depression and mental health, which are things that are so prevalent in our world today, especially in this post-COVID world. So I thought that would be a great place to start. What better place to start than something which is so prevalent in our society, because wherever you are, there's a future filled with hope. So this is Kyra's story.
The future is bright.
Well, I'm honoured to be your first guest. Not just because you had to, but because it's worthwhile.
You're also my first wife.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah. That's
only wife.
Yeah. Well, for now. Well, all right, Kyra. Well, everyone knows you're my wife now. Tell us about yourself. Why don't you give us some background?
Yeah. Well, so I was raised in a very loving Christian family. I have obviously my parents.
Yes.
I have 3 siblings. 2 of them are now married.
Not to each other.
Not to each other.
Oh,
to others.
Good.
Which is good. Yep, that's
Spread
good.
the gene pool. That's healthy.
We have a couple of nephews now, which is nice for Levi, our son, to have some cousins. And I had a great upbringing.
That's good.
I have very fond memories of camping and going on holidays and having fun with my siblings. Being one of 4, means there's lots of people to play with in the house. So
Yeah, that's good.
it was good.
Can I quickly interject and say when we were talking before this and saying how you'd start by telling us a bit about yourself, the first thing Kyra said is that she loves the colour teal and she loves dolphins. That didn't make it in the real cut. So I'm like, all right, we've got to get that in there.
Yeah, I
as
do
well
love
as
teal.
all that nice stuff about her family, she loves dolphins and the colour teal. But anyway, so you have this beautiful Christian upbringing, happy childhood. Tell us what happened. What was this hopeless situation? How did you get in these mental health battles?
Yeah, well, I can honestly say the person that I am today is very different from the person I was even 5 years ago, and it really does feel like, I don't even really know that person that I was because there's been such a change, and in thinking about my story, I remember being a very joyful, carefree, fun-loving child. But throughout my teens and into my early 20s, I felt like I was really struggling with depression. And I think it started with, not really being sure of myself and not really being sure of who I was or, even what I believed. Even though I came from a great family and was, very involved in church, I still wasn't sure what I believed personally and not sure that I was enough or that who I was enough. And so I tried to find acceptance and love and hope in things that the world would say are good things. So, be it relationships, partying, living sort of carefree and in the moment, accumulating wealth or things like that. That they were the sort of things that I felt the world offered as good and satisfying options. But, those things didn't satisfy. So I think, I found myself really battling mentally, not being sure of things, not feeling loved or accepted or worthy. And so that developed into depression, especially once I actually got sick with glandular fever in my early 20s. And so that really, I feel like, spiraled me quickly down into what I would call a dark pit. And alongside that, I'd really been battling with food. So whenever I felt unloved or depressed or hopeless, food would often be my answer, as something that would comfort me, especially when those things in the world were not really satisfying.
How'd that work out for you?
Not very good, obviously. Yeah, so I think that's a bit about how it started. I feel like, there's probably a lot of things that contribute to mental health challenges, but
it's
I
not
think
just one thing happen. It's like this pile up
multiple things
of all these things. Yeah.
Yeah, and then once I got sick and was sort of really struggling to even be able to do anything beyond wake up and eat, stuck in bed all day, that really challenged me, and I think took me a number of steps backwards.
Can you talk a bit about, like, I don't know, how you felt at this time? Because I feel like I so want these stories to be able to, people to be able to resonate with them, because everyone's story, everyone's journey is a bit different. But I think there can be similarities in that sometimes the things we face, it's like, to us, they seem so overwhelming. It can seem there's no way out. Like, what do you remember in that time? Like, what did it feel like?
Yeah, certainly that very much, there's no way out of this. And I remember so many times thinking, is this going to be the way life will be forever? Will I ever, have a time where I don't feel down, where I don't sort of feel sad, where I don't feel hopeless?
Could you see a future where you didn't feel sad?
Not really. I think I was constantly trying to get out of it, and trying to do things that would help me get to the other side of that depression. But like in the moment, would I have said, there's a future after this? I don't think I would have said yes. I think when you're in it, when you're in the worst of it, it's hard to have any hope for, a good, happy, joyful life. And so even though I was doing things, I was trying to be proactive because I knew if I just stayed the way I wasn't going to go anywhere. Like you can only go down, you can't go up. So I was trying to do some things, counselling, which was very helpful. Things like exercise because, endorphins are good. And
dolphins are good?
Dolphins are good, yeah. Also endorphins. So I was trying to do things, and be social and doing things that I'd read about or heard about that would be beneficial. And those things were not wrong, and those things, weren't bad things to be doing, but they didn't seem to cut through to the real heart of the issue, and they didn't really get to the real root of what the problem was. And I remember very specifically one night lying in my bed. I would have been in my early 20s at this time. And
so how long had you been in this space for?
Probably a few years at that point. I don't think it was at its worst point, but it was, it had been going on for a while. Yeah, definitely. And I was lying in my bed and I was really crying out to God saying, I don't really understand what's happening. I'm trying to do things, I'm a very practical, sort of logical person. So it's like, okay, I'll work my way out of this. But, crying out to God and saying, I just don't understand why I'm trying so hard, but nothing seems to be working.
Can I jump in? So I feel like that's so significant that, mental health and depression, these battles, like they're becoming things that we talk about more in our society, which is great. But there can still must be that sort of like, it's a bit of a dirty word. And, we're talking about here, it's like you had a happy childhood, solid Christian upbringing. But you were in this place where for years you were battling this and eventually like crying out to God in your bed being like, I just don't know how to fix this. It's like, I can't actually, and because that's the thing, like you couldn't, you were trying all the right things, you're doing the exercise, doing the counseling, but it's like, God, there's something at the root here that I just can't break. I can't do. And, it's okay to come to that point, it's not a sense of weakness or anything else to come to that point and saying, I just can't fix this. I can't do this. It's actually a really important step, is being like, man, I'm struggling. I can't see a way through to a bright future. I can go and sing the song Future is Bright and dance around and that's all good. But then I go home and I feel like trash because it's like, I just don't feel that underneath. I feel like I hear a lot of people talk about feeling like a fraud in these sort of times. I don't know if that's something you experienced where it's like, you could go to church or go out with your friends and put on a happy face, but underneath it's like there's this root of sadness or something underneath. I don't know, is that something you felt? Definitely felt that way. And that feeling of being a fraud and having to put on a front or, put on a mask to cover up what's really going on inside. I don't think, I don't recall ever really talking to, anyone besides, the counsellor about it. There might have been a few people I trusted with that sort of thing, but it was not, it was something that sort of seemed like a bit of a weakness and seemed a bit of something a bit dirty, something I should be doing well. There's no reason why I should be feeling this way. I should be able to fix it.
I should be able to fix it.
You hear so much in what you're saying that's like, oh, God, why haven't I fixed this? I've done the things, I've ticked my boxes. Why isn't it fixed? Why am I still broken?
Exactly.
And maybe you're watching this and you relate to that. Maybe it's not in the mental health space or in anything else where it's like, why am I still broken? I shouldn't be like this. Why? What's wrong with me? We're all broken. We're all born broken.
We all got brokenness.
We all got broken, and that's okay. But that's the beauty of Future is Bright, is that there's a real hope, a real anchor of hope that can actually take us to the other side. So why don't we go back to that time you said you were you tried all these things, you're lying in your bed crying out to God. Was this like a turning point for you?
I think it was the start of something. I wouldn't say at that point it was like the turning point, but it was certainly the start of something, because I think, I was fortunate to know that God was out there, and I was fortunate to know that there was an answer bigger than myself. Even if I didn't understand what it was, I knew at least to ask God. I knew at least to go to God and say, there must be something I'm missing here. And so if you're someone who sort of, like Caleb said, in that space that's like, I feel like I'm doing all the right things, but nothing seems to be helping me, like, I believe God will have an answer for you.
Yeah.
You know, that's something that not everyone has. Not everyone has the benefit of a, you know, a Christian upbringing or learning about who God is and, you know, what he says, or what he can offer in a situation. But I knew, you know, deep down in my spirit that God had an answer for me. And so as I was crying out to him, feeling so sad and alone, I really remember God saying to me and responding to me, you will never find your answer in anything except for in my love. And specifically, he said, in my love. My love is what you need, and it's the only thing that's going to work for you. And so
this was in that moment when you were in bed crying out to God. And when you say God, you know, you felt God say that to you, was it like, did an angel come with a flaming sword and speak to you, or was
a bright light suddenly appeared?
Was it written on the wall, or what was that moment, that experience like?
Yeah. So hearing God in that moment was, I would describe more of a sense. I didn't hear an audible voice. I didn't. Yeah, there weren't any sort of, you know, flashing lights or angels appearing, you know, through the ceiling. It was very much. It felt like it came from inside of me. A sense that God was there and that God was speaking to me. And I sort of understood that, you know, that was sort of the phrase that came into my mind, I suppose, from him, was that, you know, you're never going to find your answer in anything except for my love. And I knew that was him. I'd heard him speak before in that way many times in my past. And so, you know, I remember thinking that's God. He's telling me that, you know, I need to accept his love. And that's the only thing that's going to actually hit and cut through to a real root level. Yeah,
that's cool. So you felt this sense of God speaking to you, and you know, I think it's worth naming that can happen in a variety of ways.
Totally.
Like you can feel that sense of God speaking to your spirit, which I think is a really valid, real way that God speaks to us today. It can be through His Word. He can speak to you. And I know part of your story involves that later on, and it can be through other people. It can be through God using people to say things to you that it's that's His message for you. But it's a key there that you're saying, well, you know, for you didn't know what the answer was, but you came to this point of saying, but God, you do have an answer.
Yeah.
God, I don't know what to do. I can't fix this, but you can. And that's a crucial point of this journey, I think. He's saying, God, I can't see a way through this, but you have an answer for me.
Yeah.
I think that's an important point for all of us to come to when we're facing anything like this, is saying, God, you do have an answer. I can't see it. I can't figure out what it is.
That's right.
But you do know what to do. So yeah, that's cool. So you're in that moment, and you feel Him say, nothing but my love will be able to fix this. So what did you do? Did that fix it? Did you say, oh, God loves me, and depression's gone?
I'm good. No. So at that time, you know, it's interesting. I reflect on, you know, when God said that, I thought that what He meant by that was I actually needed to do more for Him. I needed to be a good worker for Him, a good servant.
So you hear Him say, my love, and so you're like, oh, I better do more things.
Do more things.
To earn that love.
To earn that love. So
you can love me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think my view of God at that time was very much like separate from our personal lives. And, you know, He's king, He's judge, He's, you know, this ruler up in heaven. Not really caring about the details of my life.
Just ready to squash you when you do the right thing.
Yeah, just, you know.
Like that was me as a kid with the ants out the front. Just sit over the front and just ready to squash them.
It's cruel, isn't it?
Yeah. I didn't have the nice upbringing you did. No, I didn't. I'm just joking.
So yeah, I just couldn't imagine, like, I don't think I could imagine Him as a really loving, caring father whose love could actually change how I felt inside. It's sort of, I saw Him as this far away kind of being, and so, you know, my instinct was, okay, I need to work out what this love is and how to obtain it. Obviously, that involves me doing more for Him, and I think that's very much a representation of what I believed growing up is how you connect with people and how you you know, how you end up being loved by others is what you do for them. Yeah. And so I think that's very much connected to how I viewed God at that time. And so, you know, my thought was, okay, I need to just stop doing everything that God doesn't like and just start doing everything that God likes. And so throw myself,
into doing the things.
Did
that fix it? How'd that go?
No, not exactly. And so I think, I think there are there's often times where God heals people instantly. I've seen it. I've seen people be healed miraculously in moments. But for me, this journey was not about one particular moment. It was a process. And I think as I look back on it, I think the process was about me understanding who God was and him removing the depression and, those mental health challenges over a period of time. So God was very much wanting to reshape how I viewed him and my relationship with him. And I think that's what he meant by my love is the only answer. It was about connection, about really understanding who he was. And the fact that, God is actually so interested in us personally and so interested in the things that we delight in, that really, I always thought that, my joy and my delight was very separate to God's joy and his delight. And so God would have to squash my delight and my joy to mold it into what would be his joy and his delight.
Yeah.
And so, over that time, he showed me that actually he so delights in me and so loves me as an individual that he actually takes delight in the things that I delight in. And that doesn't mean that there are things that, that don't get sort of transformed and reshaped. The Bible is very clear about how, God's word is actually sharpening us and transforming us more into the likeness of God. And so that's a thing. But I had taken the love out of the equation.
Yeah, it was very... sounds like a lot of shoulds.
Yeah,
I should
a
do
lot
this,
of
should do
shoulds.
and ought to do this, and then I earn this. A lot of earning rather than love being a gift.
That's right.
You just receive. That's really cool. And I love how you're talking about it being a journey, not just a moment. Because it's true. I've seen people be instantly healed.
Yeah.
I've heard amazing stories of people being instantly healed. We read it in the Bible, people being instantly healed.
Yeah.
But this healing and what God did in you, it from your story, it sounds more like there was root stuff underneath that needed to change in you. He was like, this depression, this stuff you're feeling is actually rooted in stuff which is right in the depths of your psyche. It's how you view me. It's how you view love. You're trying to earn my acceptance. You're trying to earn this. And it's like, until you reshape that, you like that's sort of a root. It's a key issue.
That's right.
I can't just like zap, you're all healed from depression if you keep viewing me in the same way.
Yeah.
And so it's like this amazing journey where God's walking with you and working with you and saying and giving you at just the right time the word you needed to be like, you need to connect with my love. And then you've got to learn what that actually means to connect with his love and be able to walk free in that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a beautiful picture, and it's an encouragement for all of us and wherever you are that, if you feel like, why doesn't God just heal me and fix it? If you cry out to him, he will work, he will change you, he will, but sometimes that means doing a work in you and changing things from the root up, because one of the amazing things about God is he doesn't heal you just by like covering the problems. He's not like that, the family's come around and sweep the things under the rug.
Put everything in the cupboard and shut the door.
Yeah, shut the door. Kyra's happy, no more depression. Yeah. Don't open that cupboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mum tells a great story of when they were first married, and I can't remember all the details. Sorry, Mum, to throw you under the bus if you watch this. Sorry, where they had friends coming around and they when they were first married, and so they had all these dishes piled up, so she took them in a basket and just hid them all in the laundry rather than do all the dishes. And then the friends came like, can I see the laundry of your house? Mum's
Who asked to see the laundry?
Yeah, who asked the one time they asked to see the laundry? There's all the piles of dishes. So anyway, sorry, Mum. My mum keeps a great house, so I don't mean that. But that's not how God heals us back.
No, that's right.
He'll get to the root of it and fix it from the roots up so that then it can flourish and it can bear fruit. And sometimes that'll take time. Sometimes that'll take time because we take time. We have to change attitudes and perspectives and things right in the depths of our heart.
Yeah.
It's not just a quick fix like that.
That's
but
right.
God's willing to play the long game.
Yeah,
God's
that's
willing
right.
to work with you and deal and give grace and sustain and give peace, that whole process to get you really truly free, not just to cover up sort of freedom, not just a mask of freedom, but really truly free from the roots and the depths up. So I don't know what your situation is watching this. I don't know who you are, but God would love to get in right to the roots and actually bring healing from the roots up. I really felt maybe people who are watching this need to hear that God wants to bring, and he's willing to get dirty, get down in the mud of our lives and our insecurities and our issues. And, you know, you might have issues of being insecure and just not being able to have any confidence in who you are or what he's called you to do. God is willing to get down in the mud and work that with you from the inside out. It might not be an overnight fix. It will probably take time. But God wants to bring healing and life and hold us to that. That's his nature. We see that all through his word. Sorry, it's your story.
No.
It's cool. It's good stuff.
It's good. I actually think, just thinking about what you're saying there, you know, God sees so much more than what we see.
I don't know if you can hear that. It feels like a helicopter's about to land on top of us. I don't know if you can hear that through the microphones.
There it goes. No, I think... Yeah, God sees so much more than what we see. And so there are things, you know, you might think, I'm battling depression. That was my story. But actually the root issue was about my perspective and my relationship with God.
Yeah, and not being able to receive love.
Yeah, not being able to receive love.
That's a great point.
And so God sees that, the whole thing and the whole... every part of it. And so he knows exactly what needs to happen to be able to get right down to the bottom. And as you say, you know, deal with the root and then work our way up. We can't always see that. You know, we might be looking at a problem saying, why can't I overcome this particular issue? But we might not realize that it's actually connected to something else entirely that we have no understanding of how they're connected. But God sees it and God knows how to fix it.
Yeah,
and so
that's good.
I think, you know, even when I was in like the worst of the depression, and I couldn't see the end zone. I still didn't feel like I was going to come to the other side. I still didn't feel like, you know, I could see how I was going to actually get past it. The key for me was actually choosing to keep looking at God, to keep looking at Jesus, to keep, you know, learning more about who he was and just keep putting one foot in front of the other, effectively. Still doing things like counselling, you know, still trying to do all the right things in terms of...
There's nothing wrong with those things.
No, there's nothing wrong with those things.
And they're great.
Exactly, and I think they're good, helpful things. And I learn a lot out of counselling that is invaluable. And so God
can use that to get to the roots.
And God was using that as part of the process.
Yeah.
I think that was part of the process to put one foot in front of the other and understand the things that the counsellor was working me through was things that, you know, were part of my upbringing and beliefs that I'd learned, you know, and had stayed with me for 20 plus years. And so that was all trying to get to the root of the real issue. But I had to say, God, I trust you, even though I don't see what my future is, you see it. And I know that you've said in your word that you have a plan for me. And so if that's the case, if there are good things, then I'm going to trust you. I'm just going to keep walking this same journey. And so I think that's, you know, for me, it wasn't instant. And, you know, there are times where God does do things instantly. But I think if we come to him and expect only instant healings, and then we're going to miss out on, you know, the really good stuff, you know, because if it is a journey, if it is a process, if there are things that need to be dug up and worked through one thing at a time, it's worth doing those things.
Totally.
To then step into total freedom rather than having, you know, what looks like freedom, but actually you're just replacing it with, you know, replacing it with something else. And so eventually the closet's going to open up and all that stuff's going to fall out if you don't deal with it properly.
They'll ask to look in the laundry.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. That's really cool. And that's awesome encouragement. I love that. Go with the process. Work with the process. Don't do it in your... It's no good to do what you tried to initially and just try and do the works and earn it. But let God work through the process in your heart. Be okay with the journey. You know, that's a phrase I've been I've been adopting lately. You know, you have like phrases that you have in
Yes.
like to say it's like I've got to be okay with the journey. It's
Yes,
like
that's good.
I know where I want to be, but I've got to be okay with the journey of getting there, not just be okay when we finally get there.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's good. Talk us through this. There was a moment where you told me, obviously you've told me about
Yeah.
where like it was this journey where you're working through the stuff underneath, working through the stuff, but like you said a minute ago, you still couldn't see the end zone. It's like nothing was changing, and then there was a moment where it's like something sort of
Something
flipped.
broke out.
Tell us about that moment.
So that was one morning. This would have been probably, I'm guessing maybe another 5 or 6 years after that initial,
So this has been
it's
a
a long
legit
time.
journey.
Yeah, it's a legit journey.
Yeah. We're not talking about 5 weeks.
No, we're not talking about a matter of weeks. We're talking about years. And that's not to discourage you. And there were definitely positive signs through that time. It's not like I was walking in the same deep, dark pit for all of that time.
No.
But so this was 5 or 6 years after that night. There was a morning where I just was taking time to stop and just spend time with God, and that's something I did regularly, right through life on and off. But particularly after that time, after that moment where God said, you need to experience my love. I tried to make that a regular part of what I was doing, was spending time with God. And so I did this many times. But on this particular morning, I remember sitting down and just thinking to myself, something's different. I feel different. And so I asked God directly, I said, is something different? Like, what am I feeling here? And I felt, again, the same way he spoke to me, though, all those years ago, I felt that same sort of sense in my, inner being that said, you're healed. What you're feeling is joy. And I remember being like, is that even possible? Could it be true that after all this time, I'm actually feeling joy and I'm healed? And I knew he was talking, it's a hard thing to describe in words, listening to God and actually sensing his spirit. But I
we
knew...
need a whole nother podcast on that.
Yeah, well, you'll have to do one on that. But he said, you're healed. And I knew straight away that was talking about the big thing, that was hanging over me and had been hanging over me for years, the depression. There are obviously other things that it could have, been, like there's, little things that it could have been. But I knew he was talking about the big thing, the depression that had been hanging over me for many, many years now. And I opened up my Bible, because that's part of how I would spend time with him. I opened up my Bible, and as I often did, I was just, reading Psalms, and I'd just been starting from Psalm 1 and working my way through, and I was up to Psalm 30. And at the top of the page, the title of this psalm that I was up to was called He Healed Me. And I just couldn't, I can't explain to you, like it was almost like the words came off the page, and, it was such a moment of like, he's speaking this right to me. Like, this is not just like a historical lesson and this was about David. It's actually, he was saying to me, I've healed you.
Yeah. It's amazing how God's word can do that. Be so relevant thousands of years ago, but then speak to you right now in this moment.
And in a very specific way. And, that the rest of that psalm, talks about, mourning turned into dancing. And that's what I felt like, that, the depression was gone. I didn't feel any sense of the weight or the cloud that had been hanging over me. It was gone. And I felt joy for what felt like the longest time I had not felt that same, sense of elation and happiness. It goes beyond, happiness. I think there was a true joy, so much so that my whole body wanted to respond. I remember feeling that sense of there's been mourning and I want to dance. And I remember it was actually a really nice day, and it was sunny outside. And so I actually, I was just so excited. I was like, I can't even sit here. I'm so full of joy. So I got up and I went outside and I walked up to our local park, And I was just singing and I was happy and I was, I think I even skipped for a bit, I didn't care who saw me or what was going on. I knew that a miracle had taken place in my life, that had gone, I'd gone from years of hanging under this cloud and feeling like there was no hope to all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden because it had been years in the journey, but in that moment, that was all gone. It had felt like it had never even been there, and I was now experiencing joy. And so for me, like I said, it wasn't an instant miracle. It was a journey. It was a process. But then on that day, I saw the fulfillment of what had been years and years of root work and years of, working through stuff. I trusted God. I stuck to his word and continuing to seek him and learning about his love and understanding him and my relationship with him. Even when I couldn't see the way to a bright future, I kept following him, knowing that he had an answer. And he was doing all this stuff that I couldn't see, stuff that I didn't know was happening even at the time. To me, it still felt like I was, walking in depression. But
he was changing stuff.
He was healing me from the inside, literally from the roots up, from the inside out. And then it felt like all of a sudden, one day, it was all gone, and I was living from a place of hope and joy and peace like I, hadn't known before.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about the image of like an iceberg, which I'm sure we've all seen those pictures. I don't know the stat. I didn't look this up before. Is it something like 90% of the iceberg is under the water, or
something?
I might be overselling it, but
a lot of it.
Look it up. A huge chunk of it is under the water, and then what's on top of the water is just this small little bit, and it's like God worked the healing, the miracle in you, and said, I'm going to work and do all this stuff under the water, building for years and years and years, and then finally, suddenly it breaks through on the top. And so, you say, it wasn't an instant miracle, but in a sense it almost was.
Yeah.
It's like it took years of under the surface, and then in an instant there was this change, this joy. And I think often God can do that. It's like work things under the surface. And our challenge is to not let go or get discouraged because it's like, God, we've been sticking with this. I've been doing this your way and holding fast to your word and following after you, and nothing's changed. And God's like, if you could just see from my perspective, you've built a massive iceberg under the under the water, and it's about to break through. But you've got to build the stuff underwater before you can get get it to break through on top. And I think that's sort of what we saw with you there.
Definitely.
You were saying like the joy and happiness being different. Like I almost think, I know they're two different words, but I almost think of the concept of happiness is like that's just the above the surface thing. And so happiness can be just like throw the stuff in the cupboard, close the doors.
Oh, I'm happy.
I'm happy. But like underneath, there's still, it's not going to last because it's not right underneath. But joy is when you get that cleaned and done underneath, and then it just overflows in happiness out the top. Right. It's not, you're not trying to put something on the top and close the doors. You're just letting what's underneath flow out. No, I love that picture of you saying, it's like you were just such joy inside. You couldn't help but skip and laugh and sing, and would have been good to be a passerby on that day.
I don't remember there being a lot of people around, but I don't think I would have cared.
Oh, that's an awesome story. To finish up, I want to ask you what's what's life like now? Because life is real. Life is a journey. I'm going to guess, and also I've been married to you for 4 years now, that it's ever since that day it's been nothing but skipping through the park with total happiness.
Yeah.
That's not the case. Let me promise you that has not been the case. No, but I don't want to undersell. I'm just joking there, because it's a real genuine miracle that God worked in you. And you are actually known for joy now. But I know what is life like now? What's it been like since that moment?
Well, the world around me is still the world around me, and there are still challenges daily, and things that are hard or challenging, or things don't go the way I planned, and so that can be challenging. That can be
marriage,
real.
Though. That's
not
better
than
you could have. Hoped for.
Exactly. But I think that revelation that God gave me of his love, and that he delights in me, and that he has answers for us. He has.
That's good.
There's hope in him because there is real help with him. He doesn't just sort of leave us to just go on our way, you know, and just sends us off and say, good luck to you, you know, I've healed you, now be on your way.
Yeah.
You know, he's actually with us for the journey. And so, you know, I don't battle depression like I used to, not in any way, shape or form.
No.
You know, there have been moments where I've been down or struggling to, you know, feel that same sense of joy rise up, you know, because I've squashed it with things that I'm trying to carry or things that I'm trying to work through. But at the end of the day, there is always hope, because I know I've seen God work. I've seen him, you know, do miracles in my life and continue to do miracles in my life. And I expect that to be the case as we walk through life. And I know that there is a bright future for me, for us, for our family. And so, yeah, I'm not always happy, but I believe I'm always joyful in my spirit because the depression that was there is gone, and I'm free to be who God has designed me to be.
Totally.
And so, you know, I love that what we've talked about today, he doesn't just cover up, you know, problems. He actually deals with them. And so it's not an issue at the root of me anymore.
Yeah.
You know, when I feel like things can creep in and come on top, like we've talked about, come on top sometimes, and you sort of feel a bit overwhelmed by work or kids or, you know, bills or whatever. You can feel that sort of coming on you. But what's underneath is actually I'm healed and I'm free, and his joy and his peace, and that comes up and pushes that other stuff out when I let it.
The roots are good.
Yeah, the roots are good. Sometimes things try to creep in, and I've got to watch that. But the depression itself is gone. I don't feel like I've ever been back in that same position where I'm feeling so weighed down and heavy, or like there's a cloud over me. Not anymore.
That's good.
Yeah.
You know, and this journey was before I even knew you. I knew of you. You were friends with my sister. But the person who I've gotten to know and who are married is not someone who's depressed. You know, I hear this story, and it's a bit hard for me to fathom because it's like, that's not the person I know today. And it's entirely true. I don't mean that I'm sitting here doubting it. It's because you have been healed from the inside out. And I love that picture, what you said, that's like, life is still life. Stuff comes and crowds and will try and bring sadness and challenges and that sort of thing. But the roots are good. There's joy there. It's not like, the roots are depressed and I'm trying to think happy thoughts and just be happy and push happiness on top. You've been healed from the roots up. And that is what comes out. I remember your first birthday when we were married, not your first birthday, the first birthday you had when we were married a few years ago. And on a birthday, my family would often do a thing on someone's birthday, just share some things that they think are really inspiring traits about that person, or, you know, just encourage them. Say, this is what we love about you. This is what we think is really cool. And if I remember correctly, I think 2 different people on that first birthday highlighted your joy and how infectious it was. And you'd shared this story with me. Obviously, I knew your journey. And I remember in that moment thinking, you don't know how significant it is that, you know, you've accepted Kyra into the family, and the biggest thing you recognise in her is her joy. It's like, wow, this girl's coming in and she's just so joyful. It's infectious. And it's like, she was depressed. They were trying to get her on depression meds because she was like, in such a deep dark hole, and God has healed you so thoroughly that now when people look at you, and actually people who really get to know you, the first thought they have is, man, you're full of joy. I think that's an amazing picture of how God heals and how God works, that so it's from the roots up and it's real and it's thorough. So
that's right. He's good.
He is, yeah, exactly. And he wants to work in you and heal you, whoever you are. I hope that inspires you. But what would you say, my last question for you, if you could say one thing to people who are watching or listening to this, who maybe are in similar situations or in some way resonate with your story or your battle, if you could say one thing to them, what would that be?
Get to know God. I mean, that was the answer for me, wasn't it? It was understanding who God is, and his love has, I think, been the thing that has transformed me over time. But I'd say get to know him. He will have the answer.
What do you mean when you say get to know God? How do they do that? What would a starting place be? What was your starting point?
Talking to him.
Yep.
Get a copy of his word if you haven't got it. The Bible. That's he shares his heart throughout the Bible. It feels like a bunch of stories, but if you're actually looking for evidence of who God is and where he shows up and how he meets with his people, you will find many, 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 many testimonies of God, and you'll be able to learn about who he is and about his love for you. And so, and you know, find someone who's ahead of you on the journey.
Yeah,
find someone like me, or, you know, find a church or find a pastor or someone who knows Jesus like a friend, and, you know, learn from them as much as you can.
Yeah.
That's
Talk
how
to them. Be real.
Yeah.
That's
right.
That's how you grow.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Soak it up. Eat it up. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Well, I said that was the last question. I'm going to ask you one more. Would you, to close out your story, would you pray for anyone who's watching this, and especially if you resonate in some way with this story, just like Kyra, just pray for you, whatever you feel in your heart, just to pray. Would you pray for anyone who's watching this and will watch this or listen to this anytime in the future, who might resonate with that in any way?
Perfect. Well, God, we thank you so much that you are a God who is present, a God who is real, a God who loves us so deeply, that you would send your own son to die on our behalf so that we could have a relationship with you. And so, God, I thank you that, you know, you don't leave us out in the cold. You don't just leave us in this world, in this life to just, you know, see how we go. You know, let things fall as they may. God, you are actually a really present help. I have witnessed that firsthand. I've witnessed how, you know, you speak to us, you reveal yourself to us, you actually transform us, you work in our lives to bring about freedom and joy and peace. You offer really good gifts, God, great gifts. And so, God, I'm so grateful for that. And Lord, for anyone who's watching today, anyone who, you know, it doesn't matter if they're listening to this, you know, a week from today or, you know, 10 years from today, you are still the same God who loves to be close to us, who loves to see us live in joy. God, you love us to be free. You love us to walk in, be healed and walk in your healing. And so, God, for anyone who's battling mental health challenges, depression, sickness of any kind that is keeping them from living in a place of joy, living free, you know, feeling a sense of hope, God, I pray for them right now that you would meet them where they're at right now in their darkness, God, and you would bring your light, you would bring your love to their situation, God. You would reveal yourself to them, speak to them. And right now, if that's you, if you're listening and you're feeling that right now, you're feeling a sense of, you know, be it depression, sadness, heaviness, sickness, you know, whatever it is, I encourage you to open yourself up and reach out to God, because he is present. He is everywhere. And so right now, he is with you in this moment and is waiting for you to actually open yourself up and allow him to do something in your life. So let him speak. Give him time to speak. You know, don't be surprised if you hear something like I did, you know, a sense of, you know, God's presence with you, a sense of him speaking. It might sound like your voice. It might come to you as a thought, but be open to hearing from God in your situation right now. And God, I ask for you to speak, to give a word, a piece of wisdom, a truth about who you are, that they might hold on to and start the journey and the process of receiving their healing from you, coming into a relationship with you. I thank you, God, that you do work miracles. Sometimes they're instant, sometimes they're a process, but God, you're a miracle worker, and you have good things, good plans in store for every person who is listening today. And so we thank you for that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. That's good. That's so good. And if any of that resonates with you, like what Kai prayed, God wants to meet you where you're at, whatever you're going through. And we would love to help you on that journey. Just like I said, just open up to him and just say, God, I need your help.
Yeah.
We would so love to help you in that journey. And we've put together a bunch of resources where you can explore some of these concepts in more depth and actually to help you actually take that step of reaching out and saying, God, I need your help, and actually following him. You can find that at our website. You can go to this podcast. You can get it through our website, wherever you're consuming it. If you go to our website, click on podcast, on this episode, we'll have a bunch of related content there that you can follow up to look at some other stuff like that. You can also go to a page we put together, futureisbright.com.au. So futureisbright.com.au, where you can get these podcast episodes, and you can also get a bunch of other resources that we'll put there just to help you on that journey and help you discover the future filled with hope that God has for you. Because that's why we're doing this. That's his nature. It's who he is. He says he brings a future filled with hope. So whoever you are, he's got a future filled with hope for you, and we'd love to see you experience that. Well, thank you to Kyra. Wherever you're listening, why don't you put your hands together for her?
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening. And I want to say a special thank you as well to a group of people called the Anchor Army. The Anchor Army are our partners. They're people who have signed up to say, we want to be part of this mission of sharing hope. And sharing the anchor of hope with people as far and wide as we can. It's because of their support, because of their partnership, that we can make this podcast, that we can make this resource. So Anchor Army, thank you. This content is because of you, and everyone who hears this, it's because of you and your support. We love you and appreciate you. If you want to find out more about the Anchor Army, or you'd be interested in joining up, and so you can help us to create more content like this and further resources that will help people to experience hope, you can again go to our website, click on Anchor Army, and have a look at that. We are so grateful for them and for you. I think that's all we've got to say. Do you have anything else that you want to say?
No, but if you have a story to share, we'd love to hear it. So you can send that to us via our website, caleblewis.com.au.
Yep.
But we always love to hear stories of hope and stories of how God is working in your life. So
maybe we could share it on this podcast. Maybe you could sit in Kyra's seat one day, or even just send us something and we could share it with your permission. Obviously, that would be so cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening. Episode 1 of Future is Bright podcast. Excited for all that's ahead. Like I said at the start, subscribe so that you get to hear all the rest of the exciting stories like this, because I'm really excited some of the people that I'm going to get to interview, we're going to get to interview and have in that seat.
That's right.
It's going to be great. See you next time.
Yeah.